Right, we will continue from where we left last time, and it is quite some time now. 4-5 दिन का gap आ गया. So we left it at this heading, that is 3.5.2.4. Determine the roles and responsibilities. Just to give you a review, I'll just slide back a few slides and show you what we have done in this heading. 3.5.2 was build the business analysis work plan. So in building the business analysis work plan, the first step we did was we identified the deliverables. 3.5.2.1, that was identify the deliverables. 3.5.2.2, next job was determine the tasks and activities. And in that we talked about decomposition model. 3.5.2.3, third thing was determine the timing and sequencing of tasks. And I said it is just like activity sequencing in project management. And the last heading we covered was 3.5.2.4, determine the roles and responsibilities. So project managers often develop RASI, as in project management also we use this RASI chart to identify the roles and responsibilities for the resources assigned to the project. So RASI analysis is also performed in business analysis. So this same chart, the RASI chart, is not only for business analysis or project management, it is used for so many other purposes. Even in operations also we use this chart. So this is a generic tool we are using in project management, in business analysis, and in various other places. Why? Because when we want to determine the roles and responsibilities for business analysis effort, so what is the role and responsibility of each person in the business analysis effort, that's where we will use this chart. Business analyst cannot assume that everyone involved in the business analysis process knows their role or what they are accountable for. Although they should, but at the same time, we must have a documented thing available with us which can be referred back and which could be a proper documentation which should show who is responsible for what in business analysis. Key stakeholders may be confused when they participate in on more than one project team at a time. So what will happen, that on each project they are participating, they must have defined role. So RASI charts are available for each and every project or the business analyst effort. Then stakeholders may not have any more confusion about their roles and what they are supposed to be expecting. While the RASI is used to document the role responsibilities across the team, it is also valuable to use this technique to define the role responsibilities between the project manager and the business analyst. As we have seen during our discussion earlier, there are so many collaboration points where business analyst and project manager share certain responsibilities. So they coordinate and communicate with each other and they share certain responsibilities. So how much of that responsibility is to be taken over by the project manager and how much is to be handled by the business analyst, that will also be clarified through the RASI chart. Determining roles and responsibilities at the start of the project helps to minimize this confusion and conflicts, especially in areas where responsibilities appear to overlap. And as I said, there is a lot of overlap between the responsibilities of the business analyst and the project manager. In business analysis activities, it is essential to understand who is responsible for providing the requirements, who has authority to approve the requirements, who can make decisions or settle differences when they arise, and who is involved when changes to requirements are proposed. So this RASI technique can be used to facilitate, sort through, document, and gain approval on these decisions. In addition, the RASI can be used as a communication tool. It can be referenced throughout the business analysis work when conflicts arise over authority and responsibility levels. Once completed, the RASI matrix can be included as part of the business analysis plan to ensure these decisions are approved and managed. How to construct a RASI? This Probably we have discussed in need assessment also, and in project management, and various other places where we have been using RASI. So RASI is not a very difficult job, but at least this is a very useful tool which will clarify the roles and responsibilities of several people involved. And here we have very clearly mentioned why do we require this RASI chart. We want to see, I will refer back, who is responsible for providing the requirements, who has authority to approve the requirement, who can make decisions or settle differences, and who is involved when changes to the requirements are proposed. These are the four major items about the conflict and where the RASI chart might be useful. The collaboration point here is the business analyst and the project manager share a common interest in ensuring that key stakeholders fully understand and agree to the roles and responsibilities they hold on a project. As I already said, there is a lot of overlap. While the project manager is managing these expectations across the project, the business analyst is managing the same expectations during the business analysis activities. Both roles have an opportunity to work together to help ensure the expectations regarding stakeholder involvement are met. So that is definitely a very good collaboration point. Next would be identifying the resources. The business analyst will review the planned work, determine which resources will be needed for the work, and identify any areas where resources may be over-allocated or missing. So, although detailed resource allocations and resource estimations and identifications that may fall into the responsibility of the project manager, but naturally at the level of business analyst, when he is planning the overall work in a high level order, he may have to ascertain some kind of resources at that time period, and this could be generic and it could be explained later by the project manager, but it has to start somewhere, and business analyst is the one who starts the identification of these stakeholders. As a minimum, the business analyst needs to ensure that all functional areas impacted by project are represented by a resource during requirements elicitation, validation, and approval activities. So somebody must be assigned for that purpose. All those jobs, requirements, elicitations, validation, and approval activities. As subject matter experts are often coveted across the organization and often allocated on multiple projects, business analysts should raise any concern obtaining commitment from the resources once the resources are assigned to the project. See, here again, we may have to require the RASI chart. These are the resources we are talking about, and these resources will have their roles and responsibilities assigned in the RASI. So if there are certain stakeholders, subject matter experts, who are allocated on multiple projects, then it must be very clearly communicated and commitments obtained about their availability for each of those jobs. The collaboration point here is the business analyst can lend their expertise and personal insight to the project manager as they work collaboratively to determine the optimal number of subject matter experts to engage on the business analysis activities. Business analysts may have prior experience working with key resources and specifics that influence task allocations and assignments that the project manager may benefit from prior to finalizing the overall resource plans for the project. So you see, the same kind of relationship still exists in this collaboration, because project manager is the one who is to take the business analyst job ahead, and naturally the inputs provided by the business analysts are going to be extremely useful for the project manager, so they must collaborate. So that was about the identification of resources. Now next point in the same series is estimate the work. As the work plan details begin to emerge, business analyst plays a key role in defining the level of effort required for the defined activities and deliverables. It may not be that detailed, but yes, as I said, it has to start from somewhere. Once you have the activities, you must also be defining the level of effort, as if proper estimates could be made. There are a number of estimation techniques that may be used to help support the estimation process. Project manager may have a preference as to which techniques are applied. To help improve the reliability of the estimates, the business analyst may seek the support of peers within the organization who have more years of experience in estimating similar projects within the industry or line of business. These resources may review proposed estimates and suggest adjustments based on their experience. Business analysts may consider consulting with a key stakeholder who will be involved in the work. Business analysts may validate the estimates by reviewing the planning information from past projects that use similar elicitation and analysis techniques. So we see that business analyst needs assistance in coming up with estimate for the work, and that is going to be a high level estimate. Following considerations should be factored into the estimates. Must consider the project size and the complexity in the project. What is the project life cycle selected? Amount of ambiguity surrounding the proposed solution, that is uncertainty. Ambiguity will be higher when taking advantage of an emerging technology or using a solution that the organization has little experience with. Then the number of stakeholders involved, are the stakeholder groups involved in the elicitation activities. That would also affect the estimate. Types of elicitation techniques being considered. Location of those involved in the business analysis activities. Where are they located? Geographically or otherwise, including the product development testing resources who the business analyst will interface with. Schedule and budget constraints, if any, will also affect the estimate. Any known assumptions. Number of business analysis deliverables being produced. Formality and level of detail required for the business analysis deliverable. And finally, experience level of the project team, and that is including the business analysis team assigned to the project and the stakeholders participating in the requirements related activities. So these are some of the considerations you must look at when you are trying to create this kind of estimate. Estimation is an iterative process, like progressive elaboration. It will go on and estimates will be revised. Even business analysis, and when the project has started, even then the estimates will keep getting revised. And estimates should always be revisited as the project progresses and more information becomes known to the project team. For an adaptive life cycle, the analysis work may not be estimated separately, but may be included in an overall estimate of what it will take to deliver an increment of the solution. So the collaboration point here, the project manager and the business analyst should determine how revisions to the business analysis estimates will occur. Project managers facilitate the estimation work because they are doing the detailed work, detailed estimation they are making. They can provide a lot of facilitation in the estimation work, but naturally business analysts started it. When building the project management plan, business analysts may be asked to facilitate the estimation work for the business analysis activities, since they are responsible for the business analysis process and more familiar with the specifics. Estimating the business analysis activities is a potential area of overlap between two roles. Therefore, business analyst and project manager will benefit greatly by collaborating to determine who will complete and revise these estimates throughout the project. Again, a RASI chart will explain how much work the business analyst has to do in estimation and how much work the project manager, how much detail the project manager will go in this estimation. Next is assemble the business analysis work plan. So we talked about the business analysis work plan. Now we have put in place all the ingredients, and these ingredients have to be put together to assemble the business analysis work plan. Once the business analysis deliverables, tasks and activities and required resources for completing the work are known, the information is assembled in a plan that clearly depicts the timing of the work and any dependencies. This is the point of integration between the business analysis and the project management. Business analyst and project manager need to agree on the level of detail needed for the project management plan. The level of detail maintained in the project management plan can vary based on a number of factors, minimally depending upon the complexity of the business analysis effort. And mind it, when we are talking about complexity in the business analysis effort, it is highly likely that the project management effort or work will also be complex. But the exceptions could always be there. Size of the project, naturally, that will put constraints on this. Amount of business analysis work being tracked and type of project lifecycle. Business analysis work plan may be included within the business analysis plan along with other planning decisions or organizational references, and selected project lifecycle can influence the approach used to document and communicate the work plan. So you must consider this project lifecycle is very important because it can change, turn the whole direction of your work analysis, business analysis work plan. So the collaboration point here is it is beneficial for the project manager and the business analyst both to collaborate on how to document and communicate the work plan to ensure that the business analysis activities and schedule properly integrate into a project management plan. When the business analysis process is highly complex, the project manager may prefer that the low-level details regarding the business analysis activities be tracked by the business analyst and a separate business analysis work plan. So this is the collaboration point. This is a sample business analysis work plan table in which it shows clearly the tasks in shape of the various business use cases, the resources, what are those resources which are going to be involved in those use cases, and the level of effort required. Mind it, this level of effort is not exactly the detailed one. It may change over time, as we said already, that our estimation of effort and resources is approximated, and it is the best approximation we can make at this stage. So like, in use case 1, we have interview the subject matter experts, draft the use cases, and so on and so forth. So each activity or, requirement fulfillment may take some time, and that approximation is put here. And naturally, we are using subject matter experts and other people who have already worked on similar kind of responsibilities to give us this kind of estimate if the business analyst cannot find these durations or effort by himself. And naturally, later on when the project manager will take over this job, he would be putting in the right estimates and more detailed estimates available at that point in time. Let me are you able to see 3.5.4?
Yes, sir, I can see.
3.5.4. That is the point right now. So that is document the rationale for the business analysis approach. So whatever is your rationale for the business analysis approach has to be properly documented. Documented the basis for the decisions made during the planning efforts helps to reduce uncertainty. Sharing the rationale with the stakeholders provides assurance that the plan is thought out and purposeful. It is not made on any whims. It must be properly supported by some reason, by some decision. And why did you take that decision? For the project team, understanding the rationale behind the chosen business analysis approach provides context and helps answer questions regarding why the work is being conducted and why it is being performed in a specific manner. So you must understand that people will have all kinds of doubts on your work. So if you have provided the rationale, the reasoning, the calculation or the elements behind your decision, only then you can justify that. For the project manager, understanding the rationale for the business analysis approach provides the context needed to support and fund the work, manage it, and justify the roles and resources required to complete the work. Sponsors should understand the approach to champion, lend support, and rally stakeholders around the importance of the business analysis activity. So if this rationale is provided and sponsor has this justification available with him, then it will be more convenient for him to sell this solution. He can advocate it, he can provide support to it, he can get other stakeholders on board based on this rationale. Business analysis plan along with the documented rationale provides valuable information for future project teams. When business analysis work is being planned for a new project, reviewing past plans and lessons learned assist with the planning work and allows analysis decisions to be based on experience. A center of business analysis practice may help to formalize the collection and storage of these assets, but for organizations that do not operate a center and information process for storing this information in a shared repository serves the organizational need. So it is kind of a center of excellence for business analysis practices. You could have that in your organization if possible. If it is not there, a normal database or a repository could also serve the purpose. It all depends upon what kind of organization you are working in and how much important is it for you to keep this data in record. Then we have, just hold on a minute. Okay, next point is 3.5.5, review the business analysis plan with key stakeholders. We have provided the rationale. Now, we are getting back to our stakeholders, key stakeholders especially, to review the business analysis plan and get their final buy-in. Once the business analysis plan is completed, the business analyst reviews the plan with the key project stakeholders. Reviews are conducted in person. However, when stakeholders are distributed in different geographical locations, a collaborative approach may be used that allows stakeholders to raise questions and receive direct feedback to their concerns. Maybe you are using the video conferencing or teleconferencing or some other mechanism, maybe by post or by email or whatever mechanism you are using. You have to get it reviewed in some way. The objective for the review is to reduce the risk of stakeholders failing to support business analysis activities when the work begins. So we don't want to get into the work unprepared. We want the stakeholders must be on board, their blessing must be with us, as if we can comfortably get into the actual work of the project. Stakeholders need to be comfortable with their role in the process, be aware of their time commitment to participate in the process, and understand how decisions about the requirements, priorities, and change are handled. Conducting these discussions upfront helps to obtain buy-in early and minimizes the risk of stakeholder conflict when the activities are underway. So if you systematically go through all these processes, then you are not leaving any room for confusion or discord. There should be sufficient stakeholder involvement during these reviews to ensure stakeholder needs are adequately addressed. When stakeholders feel the sense of ownership about the process, they are more likely to demonstrate a high level of interest and remain more engaged in the business analysis activities. The review process is a way to reduce the possibility of overlooking a stakeholder characteristic, concern, or limitation that could negatively influence the business analysis process. Reviews can reveal areas where stakeholders are confused or unclear about the requirements related activities. Reviews sometimes uncover unknown risks such as a shortage of resource, schedule conflict, or concern over assigned roles. So, this is the time. You can always say that this is the time when you can put up your point, put up your concern, or hold your peace. You see, this is the time we are providing for reviewing the business analysis plan with the key stakeholders, and if all key stakeholders have vetted it, have agreed to it, that means we can go ahead with the working of the thing. Naturally, I am not saying that this is the final version. Naturally, we are talking about the progressive elaboration. There might be some uncertainties. Key stakeholders may have agreed here and they may change their mind later. So we will accommodate that. We are not saying we are not, but we at least have to get an agreement at this stage. Key stakeholders in the business analysis activities should be invited to participate in this review process. For example, those having responsibility for approving, prioritizing and validating requirement. Why not? These are the people who have to be involved. If you have to get approval from someone, or somebody has to validate certain requirement and you have not involved them at that stage, probably your whole business analysis effort may go for a 6. Responsibility for a role in the change control process. If he does not know that he has some role to play in the change control process, then again we are not really well connected. Management responsibility for staff participating in requirement activities and responsibility for serving as a subject matter expert on the project. Additionally, the project sponsor, project manager and lead person who represent the interest of the downstream recipients of the requirement, such as the software development manager, quality assurance manager and training manager, they should be included. The collaboration point here is the business analyst should ensure to discuss the business analysis process with those who are tasked with performing the work. Key stakeholders who have an opportunity to provide input to structure the process are more likely to support the requirements related activities. After we have done that, we move on to obtaining the approval of the business analysis plan. We have, put it up in front of the key stakeholders. They have agreed. Now we have whomsoever was responsible for approving this business analysis plan, we will get that approval from that person. The business analysis plan may need to be revised to accommodate the feedback received from the key stakeholders. All stakeholders' concerns may not be actionable, especially when the request imposes a risk to the project or reduces the effectiveness or quality of the business analysis process. I'm not saying that all the requests of the stakeholders, all the concerns of the stakeholders will have to be addressed here. We cannot sometimes, because that may impact something, that may make the whole project unfeasible. So we will note down all the concerns. We will look into resolving those concerns. But if some concern cannot be resolved, again we have a rationale. We will note it down that this was the concern and that is why we did not address that concern, because there was high risk, there was some other issues about quality or effectiveness. So it should be properly documented. Business analyst works through the issues raised and facilitates resolution in order to avoid discouraging and disengaging stakeholders. Stakeholders must not be discouraged. Stakeholders must not be put off. They must remain engaged with the work. They must be your partners in this whole issue. Once all concerns are resolved, the business analyst takes steps to obtain approval on the plan. Obtaining approval on the plan helps to reduce the following project risks. Like, stakeholders do not support business analysis process once it starts. So, if proper approval has been sought, then this problem would be over. Project team underestimates the amount of time that business analysis activities will take. So this will be addressed here. If there is a problem with underestimation, we will, cover it up. We will revise it before the approval. Funding allocated to the requirement phase of the project is inadequate. That will be addressed. Key stakeholder underestimates the level of involvement or participation necessary for the requirements activities. They must be clarified here. Key resources are unavailable to participate in requirements activities when required. Stakeholder expectations with regard to how requirements are documented and communicated are missed. So all of these points must be, properly sorted out. They must all be addressed before the approval can be given. Approval may be formal and require a signature, or may be informal or only require a verbal acceptance. Whatever the case may be, there may be an organizational process that defines how this approval should be attained. But when a process does not exist, the practitioner or project team should define the process. We cannot just leave it like that. It is recommended to obtain approval from the sponsor and key stakeholders such as the subject matter experts who will be participating in the requirements activities, or anyone who approves requirements or participates in change activities. Once the business analysis plan is approved, updates to the plan should be made in a controlled fashion. When the project uses an adaptive project lifecycle, the team may forego a formal review and approval process, since in this case, much of the planning would have occurred as a result of extensive team dialogue and collaboration. So for adoptive cases, we cannot be very certain about the business analysis plan. So we'll leave out with that uncertainty. But naturally, further progressive elaboration and further iteration planning would address all those items. So this brings us to the end of this chapter, and we are done with this. We can move on to the next. Before we can do that, I would like to ask you if you have any questions. Ji Adil.
Okay. So I had a question, one question over here. See, one thing is again coming to my mind that if I'm going with all the activities which we have studied over here so far, so forcefully we are dragging towards the analysis through paralysis. Do you agree with me?
Okay. Right.
So if it's a billion dollar project, 40 to 50 resources are working. If I'm following all the activities which you have taught me so far, so it is going to make the analysis through paralysis approach.
Okay.
What do you think?
Adil, the thing is, these are the suggested. This is the suggested approach. If you can go into a certain level of detail, you must. But if you cannot, and you think that this is called paralysis, then you should stop. You see, we did not make it mandatory for the business analyst or the project manager to go to that level. In everything, we have specifically said if you are dealing with an adaptive project, then probably you cannot do this. I just discussed in the last item. If you are going for a adaptive project and you are working in iterations, you cannot go for the estimations and all these things and pre-approvals of everything. So don't go for that. It is only when it is possible and you understand that this will not call paralysis. This is a decision of the business analysis, or for that matter in some cases by the project manager, how much detail they will go. And also it's a collaboration point that business analyst decides how much he wants to go in detail and leaves out the further for the project manager to be done later, and this has to be properly collaborated how much job is to be done by the business analyst and how much job is to be done by the project manager. So I hope this might clarify my point.
Yes, sir, pretty well.
Okay, then I would
Okay, so my last question. My last question, as in PMP, we know at the start of the book, they've mentioned that there's a project which is of almost 2 years, a billion dollar, $5-6 billion project, and 40-50 resources are working.
Right.
So then all the activities are going to take place of the project manager, right?
Right.
So do you have any such figures in which we apply all the business analysis should be?
Can you repeat the question? I'm not fully getting it.
Okay. See, in PMB, in PMBOK, it has been written that the project is of almost got 50 to 60 resources working on the project,
Right.
and its duration is almost 1 to 2 years. Okay.
Okay.
So then we start thinking that all these activities are going to take place, and then it makes sense. Okay. This is for the project.
Right.
Management, PMP. Any analysis such kind of, if we want to do, if you want to follow all the activities of business analyst, then what should be the duration of the project or size of the project, something like that?
Okay. See, one thing you must understand that we are not planning the project here. We are planning the business analyst effort, which deals more with the requirements and the collection of requirements, and that will take time. We have to sequence the activities that. We have to create the business analysis plan for that. So we are only concerned about those things right now. As far as the actual project is concerned, the actual working of the project is concerned, that would be the responsibility of the project manager, and it will come later. So here, whenever we
Sir,
are
that
talking
I
about business analysis, just consider that it is an outline thing which is more focused on the requirements and tracing the requirements.
so that I agree that we cannot consider the duration, but we can consider the cost of the project which has been approved by the stakeholder or by the
Okay.
financer, or this is something which we can consider. One element just came into my mind. There
Okay.
could be other elements.
Yes, of course. You see,
See, okay,
yes.
sir, I give you an example.
Mhm.
I give you two projects. One project of 6 months and the other project of let's say 5 years.
Okay.
The 6 month project cost is going to be approved as let's say $5 million, and the other one is of the $2 billion.
Right.
Then in which project you are going to do the business analysis and complete study? Obviously the other one.
Okay. We have created a business case in the beginning. You remember that?
Yes, yes.
Created a business case. That was the stage when we decided which project to start and which not to start. And that was some estimation of the whole project was made there, but that was a lump sum kind of estimation, and that was not very exact. But business case did include a kind of a feasibility. That was a time when we decided which project to pick. Now, once we have picked the project, and now this project is to be
Okay.
done, business analyst is more concerned about the requirements, how these requirements will be planned, how these requirements will be collected, how they will be analyzed, how they will be traced, only the requirements. Actual detail of the work, how the work will be done, that would fall into the responsibility of the project manager. So this is not the matter of comparing two different business cases. The business case has already been selected, and this is the appropriate business case we are taking on. This is the project we are going to start. Now business analyst is working on the requirement side of it, and project manager will work more on the requirement side and finally develop his work plan. And that will be the project management plan ultimately he will be coming up with.
Agreed, sir. I got your point.
Okay. So let me display the next portion in front of you. Now we are going to be talking about the requirement elicitation and analysis, which is chapter 4 in this practice standard. So tell me when the screen is available in front of you.
Okay, sir.
Can you see the main slide?
No, sir, but I have opened my presentation, so not to worry. We can start.
Okay. So we have got 15 topics to be discussed in requirement elicitation and analysis. First of all, we will talk about the overview of this section on requirement elicitation and analysis. Then we will talk about what it really means to elicit information. Elicit information, what does it mean? Then how do we plan for elicitation? How do we prepare for elicitation? How do we conduct the elicitation activities? How do we document outputs from the elicitation activities? How do we complete the elicitation? And then 4.8 would be talk about the issues and challenges in elicitation. Analysis requirements. 4.10 is model and refine requirements, document the solution requirements, validate the requirements, verify the requirements, approval sessions, and resolve requirement related conflicts. So half of the topics we are going to be discussing is all about elicitations. Then those requirements we have collected, we will analyze those requirements. So we are talking about elicitation and analysis. So first 8 headings are explicitly about the elicitation. Once all the requirements have been elicited, they have been collected, then we start with the analysis and analysis. What are the requirements for analysis? What model are we using? How are we documenting the requirement solution? how do we validate and verify these requirements, and how the approval cycles will go on, ultimately how the conflicts are resolved about the requirements. So these are the various topics we are going to be talking about. So purpose of this section, requirement elicitation and analysis is an iterative work. Like, in whole of the project management, you keep looking at the same thing. Even if you are collecting requirements in project management, project manager is doing that. No matter how detailed the requirements are, they still will change. New requirements will be elicited over the life of the project life cycle, and new requirements would be adding into it. So it is a continuous process. It will be iterative in nature, though the process has started from the business analyst. So what do we do in it? To plan and prepare and conduct the elicitation of information from the stakeholder. How do you intend to get information from the stakeholders? How do you make your preparations, and how do you actually conduct the elicitation process? Then how do you analyze and document your results of that work, and ultimately to eventually define and set a set of requirements in sufficient detail to enable the definition and selection of the preferred solution. So preferred solution can only be made when the requirements are clearly in front of you, and then you can start, this will only define, the requirements will only define the product scope. How to do it would be covered in the project scope, and that is the job of the project manager. With requirement elicitation and analysis, business analysts use a number of elicitation techniques. Many methods are there, and apply a number of analysis models to support the elicitation and analysis activities. What it means to elicit information? The common approach to obtaining requirements information is through elicitation. So elicitation is a word which actually stands for collection. Requirement elicitation is the activity of drawing out information from stakeholders and other sources. In business analysis, it involves eliciting information about the cause of the business problem or the reasons for addressing a current opportunity, as well as the information that will eventually be used to derive a sufficient level of requirement to enable solution development and implementation. That's exactly what we talked about. We actually want to come up with a solution and how it will be implemented. But because before we can have the solution developed, we must understand all the requirements, and we must have properly analyzed and prioritized those requirements, and then only can we develop the solution, and then only can it be implemented. So elicitation is more than requirements collection or gathering. It is digging deep. It is digging deep and understanding each and every requirement and how they are collected. Elicitation process is more than collecting and gathering requirements. The terminology collecting or gathering requirements implies that stakeholder already have the requirements ready to be collected or gathered. By elicitation, what do we mean? We are digging it out from the stakeholder. We are, scraping his mind. The requirements which a stakeholder himself cannot convey, cannot even think of, we are providing him the fodder. We are giving him the direction as if he can be comfortable in coming up with those requirements which otherwise he would not have given. Requirements are not ready and waiting in the stakeholder's mind, or in documents within the business community. So this is not something, this is a ready-made effort. Requirements are there, we are going and just collecting it from the stakeholder. While stakeholders may not have actual requirements, they do often have wants and needs. However, they may not be able to express them clearly. They may know.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, I wasn't able to hear you from the complete slide of this.
Okay.
From the starting of the slide.
Okay, let me go back. You see, what I was saying is that elicitation is just not simply the collection or gathering of the information. This
Sorry, sir, not this slide. Sir, I'm talking about the overview slide.
The previous one?
So the colored one.
Okay. This was the overview
Slide
slide.
number 7.
Okay. That was the purpose. Is it the slide with purpose? 4.1?
Yes, sir. Purpose.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
okay. I said that the process of requirement elicitation and analysis is iterative in nature. This is not that you collect, you elicit the information in the beginning and then you forget about it. You don't have to elicit it anymore. No, this is going to be a continuous process, and it starts with the business analyst, and project manager continues this effort till the end of the project. The requirements will keep changing, the new requirements will be coming. So we will keep eliciting the requirements, and we'll keep analyzing them, and we'll keep adding them to the project, and ultimately the project work will also keep getting amended. This is the progressive elaboration. So this is iterative work to plan, prepare and conduct the elicitation of information from the stakeholders. So how will we, what is my plan to elicit this information? What is my plan to prepare for this elicitation process, and how do I really conduct it? To analyze and document the results of that work, and eventually define a set of requirements in sufficient detail to enable the definition and selection of the preferred solution. As I was saying, preferred solution cannot, come up until and unless I have elicited the information, I have analyzed the information, I have put it all up into a solution. With the requirements elicitation analysis, business analysts use a number of elicitation techniques, a number of methods, techniques are to be used, analysis models are to be used, and they will actually support the whole thing of the requirement elicitation and analysis. What it means to elicit information, the common approach to obtaining requirements information is through elicitation. This is a common approach. So this is an activity of drawing out information from the stakeholder. Now, what do we mean by drawing out? In the next slide, I was talking about that. I'll get back to that also. Drawing out, as it is, it will be explained later, that it is not just the matter of collection. It is matter of digging it out of the stakeholder. The business analysis, it involves eliciting information about the causes of the business analysis or the reasons of addressing a current opportunity, as well as the information that will eventually be used to derive a sufficient level of requirement to enable solution development and implementation. So let me refresh the slide. Okay, are you with me on the same slide? I am on elicitation is more than requirements collection or gathering. Can you see this?
Yes, sir. We are on the same side. Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. So this I was explaining that elicitation, as I was saying, elicitation is just not simply the matter of collecting and gathering. Those requirements are not written down by the stakeholder already, and they are lying in folders and files, and you are going to go to the stakeholder and he will hand over those things to you. This is not going to happen. The terminology collecting and gathering requirements implies that stakeholder already have that requirement ready to be collected or gathered, and you are just going there and collecting it. This is not actually happening. Requirements are not ready and waiting in the stakeholder's mind or in documents within the business community. Stakeholder sometimes does not even know what they want. While stakeholders may not have actual requirements, they do often have their wants and needs. So what are the needs and expectations of the stakeholder? You have to study them. You have to talk to them. You have to, get involved at a psychological level with them and prepare them to come up with their requirement, come up with their needs and expectations. They may not be able to express them clearly. So this is your responsibility as a business analyst to, put their wants and needs in words. They may know there is a problem, but they may not know exactly what the problem is. You facilitate them. You help them in coming up with words to put the problem in words, the needs in words. They may want to take advantage of an opportunity but not know how to get started. You help them as a business analyst. Part of the business analyst job is to help the stakeholder define the problem or opportunity and determine what should be done to address it. The elicitation process helps facilitate this work. Some stakeholders may not even know their needs. For example, a startup organization exploring potential opportunities may not have any idea of what to ask for. In this case, the business analysis process supports the discovery practices by eliciting and validating unknown needs. Stakeholders have information that is valuable to the business analyst, but the information is not necessarily in the form of a requirement that is ready and waiting to be collected. So we have to convert it into that language, into that factor, as if we can really make use of it. Next topic will be importance of elicitation information. The results of elicitation are a core input for business analysis work. If we have done this job well, if we have properly elicited, if we have, scrapped the mind of stakeholder in a very, deliberate fashion, and we have got all the information out of the stakeholder, then the next step would be the analysis of this information, and this analysis cannot be possible until and unless proper elicitation has taken place. Information is not only elicited to generate the requirements or answer questions from the solution team, but the information becomes the basis to effectively complete other business analyst tasks like, support executive decision making, apply influence successfully, assist in negotiation or mediation, resolve conflicts, define problems. I personally feel that although stakeholder has the information and he may or may not know it, but after you have elicited the information, you are wiser than the stakeholder. Now, you have heard all the stakeholders, the points of view of all the stakeholders. So you have the whole picture. So if there is a conflict between two stakeholders, one wants one thing and another wants another thing, you are in a better position because you have the whole picture to resolve their issues, to resolve their conflicts, to better define the problem, to assist them in negotiation, mediation, all these steps, all these things, better decision making, apply the influences successfully and properly at the right places. So you are wiser as a business analyst after having elicited the information properly. So as far as the support executive decision making is concerned, are you able to see this slide, that is the details of all these 5 points?
Yes, sir. I can. I've got my own presentation, so you don't have to worry on this slide.
Okay. So supporting executive decision making, what does the book say about it? It provides the supporting information to the executives who are making strategic decisions about the direction of the organization. Considering that all such strategic decisions are business based, the business analyst objectively obtains the information necessary for these decisions to be made. You see, he is providing the fodder for the executive to make his strategic decisions more sanely, more intelligently. So you are providing that information to him. So naturally, this information you are collecting, eliciting the information. If it is not right, it is not detailed, then probably better decision making cannot take ultimately. Apply influence successfully. What does that mean? Influences to enable the completion of work. How will you get the job done? How will you influence the right quarters to get the job done? Business analysts have no vested authority. Therefore, they should use influence in order to get things done. Influence is more successful when it is backed with information. You must be, as I said, you have the whole picture and you are the scholar in that. Now, you can use this knowledge power, this influence, to get those things implemented, to support the goals. Next step is assist in negotiation or mediation. Negotiates on behalf of the project team, management, or business. In all such negotiations, the business analyst first elicits information and understands the motivations and our goals of all sides in conflict, and then negotiates based on principle or objective facts. Resolve conflicts, provides information necessary to resolve conflicts. Business analysts are often brought in to resolve the conflicts or to serve as direct mediators for the project manager or business manager. Conflict is generally resolved with information because conflict in business is usually the result of misinformation or assumptions based on a lack of information. And you are the person who is holding the information and the detailed information because you have elicited this information. Therefore, you are the best person to help the project manager or the business manager to resolve their conflicts. And also the last step is the define problem provides the information to identify the real problem. The business analyst provides this information by identifying and analyzing the business process that need improvement over the course of analysis. Failing to elicit. If you cannot elicit properly, what does that mean? You could not scrap the mind of the stakeholder properly. Failing to elicit enough information can result in erroneous conclusions and an increased number of assumptions. If you don't have facts, what do you have? You have assumptions. So try to collect as many facts as possible. I understand everything cannot be provided as facts. Sometimes we do have to take assumptions, but why are you taking assumptions where facts could have been made available? This is your decision now. That how is it an paralysis through analysis? So you have to stop short of that. Don't do paralysis through analysis, but as much information can be made available, that is good. If it is not, then probably you have to take assumptions there. Too much information may hinder the team ability to move forward. Too much information, that is paralysis. Too much information, more than required, that may, delay you. So the art of elicitation is to obtain enough information. This is the important point. Not too much, not too less, but enough information, and you are the best judge as a business analyst. How much is enough to be able to validate the requirements through a process of learning in order to confirm that the project team is delivering the right solution. I hope you understand my point. How much is enough? This is your decision. This is not the decision of anyone else. You are the person who will, if it is the paralysis through analysis, you are causing it because you are not doing the proper elicitation. The key here is enough elicitation. Enough elicitation. Do you get this point?
Yes, sir, I got your point.
Next is plan for elicitation. So for requirement elicitation, some planning for elicitation occurred during the construction of the business analysis plan. When you were doing the business analysis plan, you had some idea of how and where you will start collecting the information. You identified the stakeholders there. You know the stakeholders. So you do have the basics of the plan of elicitation already preparing. Because the planning is iterative in nature, other planning is performed closer to when the activities are ready to begin. So progressively we'll elaborate and we'll plan even further, but naturally the thing has already started. The ball has started rolling right when the business analysis plan was created. So requirement elicitation preparation, or for that matter you can say the planning of that has already started. Prior to elicitation, the business analyst begins to focus on more specific details such as how to conduct the elicitation. That is sensitive. You just don't jump into the elicitation process. You have to first plan it very carefully. Then you have to prepare your stakeholders that you are coming, and they should be ready with some kind of information or some pointers you may leave. You may send them certain questions to answer. So how to conduct the elicitation, you have to plan for it. And then which stakeholders do you want to involve? Maybe you want to involve the stakeholders in stages. In first stage you want to go to some key stakeholders, and then next level and next level, and you must prepare some kind of questionnaires for them, or prepare them for that thing. This is preparing for elicitation. Which order to schedule the elicitation sessions? So whom should you go first? And sometimes it is possible that you may revisit a stakeholder when you realize that, an information which has become available to you now, that demands that you go back to another stakeholder who you have already interviewed, you have already elicited information from, and there is certain clarification required. I would give you an example. I was involved in one of the business process engineering projects in which we were talking to National Highway Authority, and with National Highway Authority, I issued them, I planned the whole elicitation process, and I issued them a program. How and when I want to interview them, I want to discuss with them, and the first tier was the top level management. Then when I went to the top level management, I asked them who else could have more information, and then I involved that focus group in the next stage. So the first stage was the top level management. Whatever information they could provide, they did provide. Then I moved on to the next stage, and that was the focus group. And the last stage was when we were doing the facilitation sessions, and those facilitation sessions were generally with the employees of that organization who were involved in that job. So it could be done in tiers. This is your decision how much detail you want to go. If it is a very sensitive issue, you may like to go for a lot of elicitation effort. So you schedule those elicitation sessions, and this schedule can be released over time also. But naturally, you must have a plan. You must have very clearly defined in your mind how you are going to go about it. So if you have an elicitation approach, there are benefits. A well thought out approach to elicitation provides the following benefit. You see, I told you, I have just quoted you an example. We tried to develop a well thought out approach. So what would be the benefit? Clearer idea of the necessary information, what I want from whom, and what I want to define. Define the problem. I will be, if I have the necessary information, I can define the problem. I can affect an improvement. I can produce a solution. Fewer unnecessary elicitation activities. You see, this is a great tendency that when we start talking to someone for elicitation of information, unnecessary or unrelated topics start getting discussed, and that is the waste of effort. Try to keep the discussion focused. More valuable results from each elicitation sessions can be sought. More efficient and predictable use of stakeholder time to elicit the information, and better overall focus on the entire elicitation process if I have done a well thought out approach. Then we will have these benefits: clearer ideas, fewer unnecessary details, more valuable results, more efficient and predictable use of the stakeholder time, and better overall focus. So these are when we have got well thought out approach. So now let us move on to developing the elicitation plan. An elicitation plan is a device used by business analysts to help formulate ideas about how to structure the elicitation activities. So this is you sitting in your planning room and developing a plan without even getting in touch with the stakeholders, how you are going to go about it. The plan is not a formal document and does not take a lot of time to create, but I would say make up your mind and plan something, some outline for that. It can be documented or it can be thought out process used to prepare the forthcoming elicitation effort. The work needed to create the elicitation plan involves thinking through how to best coordinate and conduct elicitation across a project. So you must have a whole well laid out plan for elicitation, how you have to go to the stakeholders and how you have to collect all this information. What are the basic elements of the elicitation plan? Some of the elements of an elicitation plan include, but are not limited to, there could be more things also. Number one, what information do you want to elicit? What do you want? Write down your questions. What does the business analyst need to know in order to define the problem, solve the problem, or answer the question? Number two, where to find that information? Go to the right quarters. Where is that information located? In what document? From what source? In whose mind? Identify who has that information and where it is located, and then hit that target. Third, how to obtain that information? What method will be used to acquire the information from the source? Maybe it can be downloaded from the internet. Maybe it can be only sought out after discussion. Maybe you have to send out a questionnaire. How are you going to obtain that information? You must describe that. And then sequence the elicitation activities. I discussed sequencing earlier when we were talking about business analysis plan, work plan. So this sequencing was only about the business analysis activity. It was not the project management, the whole project sequencing. No, we are just sequencing the elicitation activities. In what order should the elicitation activities be sequenced to acquire the needed information? Where to go first, where to go next? So it should be properly ordered. It should not be haphazard. Finding information. Sources of information may be number one, an individual the business analyst plans to elicit information from, or it could be a model. You know, sometimes we elicit information from a model. We put some data into something and and that data will tell us what are the results, and ultimately I get the information. And third is other documented references, that is some reference material which I can refer to, that I have found this requirement in the documents and I can refer to that document. Individuals in the elicitation plan should be identified by role rather than by name. Because you see, I say I will get this information from Mr. Shahid, and Mr. Shahid is not there. How can I get this information? Tell what the role of that person is, because if that person is not there, someone else must be performing that role. So go by the role rather than by the name. When information cannot be provided by individuals, the business analyst should consider leveraging basic elements of the enterprise architecture when one exists. Components within the enterprise architecture often contain reusable artifacts such as process flows, logical data models, business rule models, business domain models. You might have heard about the workflows, process flows. So they are very useful. They actually show how the things are flowing and how you must go about it, and where the problem really occurs and how the things actually happen. So you can develop the logical data models or business rules or whatever if they are not existing. If they are already existing, you can study that and you can always come up with your information very deliberately. It is a good practice to try to identify at least two sources for each topic or question to be explored during elicitation, in order to avoid proposing any requirements or solution that is based on the opinion or information derived from a single source. So we want to be sure about the thing. We want our results to be properly authenticated. So go for more than one source. Never rely on a single source. Then techniques for eliciting the information. There are
Excuse me, sir.
yes, please.
Sir, the slides which I've got from you, there are only 24 slides. Can you please share me the complete slide set
Okay,
so that I can refer from it?
okay. I'll send you this slide. You don't have this slide which I am discussing, right?
Yes, sir. From this side onward, I don't have any slide.
Okay. Is it visible on the screen?
Sir, it is, but it's. Can you send it me now, because it's been convenient for me to go through
Okay.
with the slides, because at many times the slide is previous and you are moving forward. You are
No.
talking about the other side. I
This is
start jumping and I just
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Let me. Okay, I'll send this presentation to you right now. And should I do it by email?
Yes, sir, you can do it by email. Only this one. The previous ones were all right.
Okay, okay. Just hold on a minute. I'm just going about it. This is the email subject is elicitation, and I have just sent you. It will take a little time, and you'll get it.
All right, sir. Let's move forward. In the meantime, I'll open my slide as well.
Okay. So I think this slide is in front of you right now. This is techniques for eliciting information. You know, there are several methods that are used to elicit information. Each technique has its own strengths and weaknesses. By understanding a variety of techniques, the business analyst has sufficient information to know which technique is best to use. So you must know all the techniques and you must be able to select the appropriate method or technique for whatever elicitation you are trying to do. Formal elicitation methods are planned and structured, while informal methods are typically unplanned, unstructured. So we will look at both of these. Then sequencing the elicitation activities. There are dependencies that constrain the timing of elicitation activities. Some information is necessary before other information can be understood. So naturally, to whom you want to go first and then to whom you want to go next. So you must decide it, because it will be useless to go to any stakeholder haphazardly until and unless you have the basic information available from another stakeholder. Planning helps to identify and sequence information in the order the information needs to be collected. These dependencies may be documented in the elicitation plan to help organize the flow of elicitation activities. We are not talking about creating a detailed network diagram for that. You may not have that, but at least create a table, and that table should show what is the question, what is the information you want to collect, from whom you want to collect it, what is the method you want to use, and what is the sequence number. So this sequence number is kind of a priority. Number one is like, if you can see this table 4.1, that is the example. Number one sequence is that what is the physical layout of both buildings, and the source is building plans and the facilities, and the method you are trying to use is document analysis and interview. Then the second priority is how many employees will be moved. You have to get in touch with HR and you have to interview them. The method will be interview, and so on and so forth. This is a very good example. You can create this kind of table. What information? First column, source, what is the source of information? What is the method you want to use? And what is the sequence or priority in which this job has to be done? Next, you prepare for the elicitation. You have planned for the elicitation. Now you prepare for the elicitation. Planning was done in-house. You are sitting in your room and you planned everything. Now you are preparing for the elicitation. Before you go for elicitation, you get in touch with those people, send them your schedule and do things like that. Elicitation preparation may be formal or informal. Elicitation preparation is the planning performed to conduct an effective elicitation session. The business analyst may create informal preparation notes to organize and to help facilitate the session. Preparation notes can be used to measure the progress achieved in a session against what was planned to be achieved, and can be used to adjust expectations for future sessions. So what do we do in that preparation? Number one, determine the objectives. Why are you going there? To ensure elicitation activities are effectively performed, the business analyst should set an objective for each session to achieve. The objective is the reason why the elicitation activity is being undertaken. Each session should provide some value and benefit to justify the time it takes to obtain the needed information. So you see how important it is not to waste time, only spend time in those activities which are actually being able to produce something, some good result for you, some value or some benefit to you. Therefore, every elicitation activity must have an objective. Then determine the participants. To whom are you going? Exactly, you only should go to those people who hold that information rather than wasting your time with those people who do not. At the completion of stakeholder analysis, the business analyst should have divided the long list of stakeholders identified into groups or classes. The result of the stakeholder analysis can be used when selecting the participants to invite to an elicitation session. If additional stakeholders are uncovered, after the stakeholder analysis was completed, the business analyst should update the stakeholder register to ensure there are no stakeholder groups overlooked and factor in elicitation time for these new groups. The business analyst schedules the appropriate amount of time for each stakeholder group. It may be appropriate to schedule less time with executives than with end users because more information is held downstream with the end user. Naturally, you spend some time with executives and you remain in touch with executives, but do not expect that all the information will be available from the top executives. Third point is determine the questions for the session. What do you want to ask? Frame your questions. When the objective of the elicitation activity suggests using interview, focus groups or facilitated workshops or other techniques used to elicit information directly from stakeholders, the business analyst may want to prepare a set of questions prior to conducting the elicitation in order to ensure the session objectives are achieved. It is often effective to identify more questions than needed in the event that questions are answered more quickly than expected. So if you have got half an hour dedicated for that, if you know the stakeholder is already well prepared and he answers all the questions in 15 minutes, then maybe you may have some subsidiary questions which you may ask or you may call it off. The business analyst should know the rationale for each question and they should not be haphazard questions. It should not be unplanned questions or questions without a rationale, without an objective. And be able to explain why a question is important or why it is being asked. This is very important. You must satisfy the stakeholder. Why are you asking? He may have apprehension. Why are you asking so many questions? So questions that do not move the session forward to achieving the desired objective are those questions that obtain data that do not have a specific purpose should be avoided. Do not ask stupid questions. Only ask those questions which are going to add value. This is the figure in front of you. Examples of preparation notes for an elicitation session. So this is an example. You can, make a card or a page on which you can write number one, the objective. What is my objective of going to the stakeholder? Maybe the objective is come to an agreement on what equipment will be moved. Who is the participant of this discussion? Director of IT operations, director of facilities, HR manager, director of... So who all are to be involved in that group with whom you are going to be having these questions? What are the questions you are going to ask them? This is a very good example here. It says, number one, will there be any new equipment purchased to replace the old equipment? If there is new equipment, will it be delivered to the new or old address? Will the move of the computer equipment be responsibility of IT or the general moving company? Will the employees be responsible for any part of the move? For example, moving personnel items, or will these be boxed up and moved by the moving company? What insurance will cover the equipment during the move? Is there a specific order in which the equipment is required to be moved? So if you can have this kind of thing ready with you when you are going for such interaction, then probably half of your problems are over. You are already well prepared. You have got the preparation notes, and I would even say that what if you share some of these points with those people already? Send them certain questions as if they come prepared. And naturally, if you have to further elicit certain information and they cannot provide, you can tailor it through your questions. So the questions in this table are in no particular order. The business analyst may organize the questions with easy, non-threatening questions at the beginning and end, with the more challenging and complex or contentious questions in the middle of the session. Don't offend anyone in the beginning or in the end, because if you offend him in the beginning, he would not be able to provide you the right information. He may be angry, and do not make him angry when you leave. He will have his expectations will be disturbed if you make him angry at the end of the session. So tailor it in such a way that the more challenging and complex questions are asked right in the middle of the session when the heat is on. Doing so helps the group make progress in the session early before needing to address the challenging questions, as well as ensuring the sessions end on a positive note. Elicitation preparation may be formal or informal depending on the preference of the business analyst, preparation notes are solely for the benefit of the business analyst to ensure elicitation is facilitated effectively. This is not some official way of doing it, but this is a tool. You can use this tool and be more effective in your elicitation. Yes, please.
So can you move your slide? Basically, I'm a little bit lost in which slide we are standing.
Okay. Have you
I
seen
believe we are on
figure 4.1?
4.1.
Figure 4.1.
Yes, yes, yes. I've seen it. Yes, figure 4.1. Yes,
Okay.
I've gone through it.
I am on the next slide on that. I have discussed the figure 4.1. You can just have a scan of that. What is there? I
Yes,
discussed.
sir. I was with you on this. I was with you on this slide.
Okay. On the next slide, it just talks a little bit more about it. It says that figure 4.1, the questions were not in a particular order and all that.
Sorry, sir. Sorry to interrupt, but again, the slide is not showing to me.
Okay. But did you get
The
the email?
slide.
Did you get the email?
Yes, sir. I got the email. I've opened the slide. I'm with it. So, aren't you basically aren't you updating the slides?
I am no. This is what I have sent you.
No, that I agree. Basically, usually what you do, you move forward with the slides as well. I can see the slide which is now the screen has gone. So
It
I
will
was looking at your screen.
there is
Okay. Okay.
on internet there is a problem whenever there is a notification on computer, the sharing stops, right?
Okay. Okay.
So right now
Okay.
I'm again fixing it, but I can't help it because it suddenly stops on one slide.
I agree. Okay. All right, sir. Let's continue. I guess the slide will come.
Okay. Okay. I am moving on to 4.5, conduct elicitation activities. Can you move on to that slide?
Okay, sir.
4.5, conduct
Yes, sir.
elicitation activities. You can even open the book.
No, I'm comfortable with the slides. I've received your email and I've opened the PPT.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, conduct elicitation activities. How do you conduct? Now what you have done, you have planned the elicitation, you have already prepared for the elicitation, and now you are actually going to do it. There are 4 stages during the actual elicitation activities in which information is gathered. You see, this is very normal. This is normally we do everywhere. Introduction, body, close, and follow-up. In introduction, it sets the stage. When you go to interview someone or to elicit information, just give him a very brief of your objective and purpose. And set the expectations, set the pace, establish the overall purpose of the elicitation session. Why are you there? As if the time is not wasted. Once you have given that introduction, then move on to the body of it. Body is the questions you have prepared. Start asking those questions one by one. The body is where the questions are asked and the answers are given. So you have asked all your questions and you are now satisfied. Now give a closing. You summarize what you have heard or you have collected. So the close provides a graceful termination to the particular session, and it is very good that you give it in form of a feedback. Feedback means whatever had been discussed, give a quick summary to the stakeholder as if he is also online. If he thinks that something you have captured is not right, he will put you right. And then follow up. Follow up is where the information is consolidated and confirmed with the participant. Some people do the follow up after you have conducted the elicitation activity, and you then write down the notes of minutes of meeting or whatever and send it back to the participant for confirmation. But as I said, it is the best approach that you do the follow up right there. You should be quick in mind. You should keep making notes and summarize it in front of that, and if possible, if you can write down all the conclusions and get your notes signed by the stakeholder, that would be the best approach. So we move on to the next section for discussing each of these points one by one. First, the introduction. During the introduction, the business analyst establishes the frame for the session and sets the tone and rapport with the participants. The frame is created at the beginning of each session by stating the problem and by providing an overview of the session objectives. The frame is a cognitive technique that causes the participant in a session to subconsciously focus on the subject at hand. The structure keeps the participant on track and thinking about the objectives. Stating the benefits that will be achieved when the objectives are met helps to increase stakeholder participation and provides relevance to the information that participants are sharing. So you are setting the stage, in other words, you are setting the stage. The business analyst should consider use of a parking lot as a tool to keep participants on track. Parking lots are used to minimize sidetracking, derailing, and hijacking of the meeting by participants. This can be done virtually. You can keep a code, or bring the discussion back to the point by referring to a specific objective. The parking lot created an easel pads, whiteboards, or electronic equivalent is a place to store topics that have been raised by the participant which do not relate to the session objective. Business analysts should explain the session rules, including the use of the parking lot prior to the start of the elicitation. So this is a very good thing. This tool is a very intelligent tool that maybe you can have a whiteboard and you can keep jotting those points which are irrelevant to your questionnaire and declare that as a parking lot, and you would explain to the stakeholder that all the points on the parking lot would be discussed later, or I'll clarify it later, but these are the points which I am going to focusing on. These are my questions. So it will minimize sidetracking, derailing of the discussion, or sometimes the participants, they hijack the whole meeting by discussing something which is not relevant to the business analysis. So the business analyst should explain the session rules, including the use of the parking lot prior to the start of the elicitation. So this is the introduction. In the body, which is the main body of the elicitation session, is where the business analyst's soft skills come into play. And what are they? Active listening, empathy, body language, selection of questions to ask, sequencing of questions, influencing skills. You see, these are our soft skills. And yes, they can be taught, but if you want to discuss each one of them, this is a very long story. I hope you understand what the active listening is. Active listening is that you are, whatever the participant is saying, you are not only listening to it carefully, but you are also registering it and you are giving the feedback. You are reproducing it and getting the confirmation. That is active listening. Empathy.
Yes.
Empathy is you're getting into the socks of that stakeholder and thinking like him, trying to think like him, putting yourself in his feet. So then is the body language. I hope again you understand what the body language is, how the other person is behaving. If he is making bad faces and all that, maybe he is not interested. You have to get him relaxed. Try to converge the discussion onto some relaxing elements. Maybe ask softer questions then, and gain the confidence of that person. Select the questions which to ask first and which to ask. Sequence those questions, and somehow sometimes you emphasize, you influence uh, the stakeholder. If he is avoiding answering certain questions, you can kind of use some kind of influence. During the body, the business analyst elicits the primary information and achieves the objectives of the elicitation session. Moving from the introduction to the body ideally should be a seamless transition. Handled well, the participant should not notice the shift to the more challenging questions and should continue to answer questions. The body is the portion of the session where momentum is built and the team is highly performing and engaged in providing a large amount of information. What are the types of questions you should ask? There are a number of different types of questions that can be asked. Business analyst selects the appropriate types of questions to meet the objectives and mix up the question types in order to generate most information. Not all questions are planned. You see, sometimes the answer you receive out of a question that generates another question which should be asked immediately. Much of the conversation during elicitation, while directed and investigative in nature, is spontaneous. Through practice and experience, the business analyst develops the ability to probe and further dig into the details and adjust the direction of questioning based on the responses received. The types of questions that can be asked are as follows. There could be open-ended questions, there could be closed-ended questions, there could be contextual questions, there could be context-free questions. You might have studied about these things earlier somewhere, but here let me explain them very briefly. An open-ended question is that allows the respondent to answer in any way they desire. So this is a subjective kind of answer you are expecting from open-ended question. Like you say, how are you? So this is a question he can say, I am well, I am not feeling very well today, and things like that. And a closed-ended question is where you expect an answer in certain choices, like yes or no, or you can give him 3 choices and he can come up with any one of those. A question that calls for a response from a limited list of answer choices. Types of closed-ended questions are forced choice, limited choice, or a confirmation, yes or no. What are the contextual questions? A question that requires an answer regarding the subject at hand, namely the problem domain or the proposed solution. So reference to the context. So it is related to the main purpose you have already given to them, or maybe you are trying to deduce a proposed solution out of it. So this is in context with. So such questions are contextual and are they linked. Then there are context-free questions, a question that may be asked in any situation. Context-free questions are also used as lead-ins to obtain information to define the solution. You see, these context-free questions may be, like I say, are you with me? Are you getting me? Is there anything more you want to say? So these are context-free kind of questions in which they may not be related to what we already are discussing, but for further clarification or further authentication, we can use these context-free questions. Next item is how to ask the right question. The right question is not known until after the question is answered and analyzed. There is no one right question that will provide the exact information that will generate the correct solution. In many cases, information that leads to the perfect solution arrives in pieces from many questions and many participants' responses. The more questions asked, the greater the chance to ask the right question. You don't know what is the right question. One way to know whether the right question were asked is to analyze the results of the elicitation and assess the outcome to see if the objectives of the session were achieved. If they were achieved, you might have asked the right question. So this is the analysis of your elicitation session will tell you how to ask the right question. Then is the listening, as I was saying, the active listening thing. The business analyst needs to employ active listening to capture all the information that comes with each answer. Active listening is the act of listening completely with all your senses. Active listening entails paraphrasing or reciting back what is heard to ensure an accurate understanding of what has been communicated. You have to get it confirmed. Whatever he has said, you repeat that in a summary and are asked for confirmation. It involves suspending all judgment about what is being heard so that information flows freely. Do not add your own input into it. Just reproduce whatever he has said and then summarize it and ask him, is it what you mean? When discrepancies in information are identified, the business analyst should not call attention to the discrepancy, but instead continue to draw out other clarifying information through questioning. Our goal of active listening is to clear up discrepancies without raising the possibility of conflict. Do not get into a situation where you are in conflict with the interviewee. During elicitation, some stakeholders will not provide information that they believe the business analyst may already know. So, this is a great problem. They say, well, you are a very educated man, you must already be knowing it. You say, I am a goof. I don't know nothing. Please tell me everything. In these scenarios, the stakeholder may provide only high-level answers to the questions raised, assuming that the business analyst understands the lower level details. In order to gain access to the specifics, the business analyst needs to communicate to the stakeholder that the information being provided is unknown and needed. This will ensure the flow of information is provided at a sufficient level of detail. So this is listening. Then is close. The close occurs at the end of an elicitation session. Purpose of the close is to wrap up the activities and focus on next steps. When the elicitation conducted was in form of a workshop, the business analyst may consider a rundown of the assignment of action items so participants are aware of their responsibilities at the conclusion of the session. When the elicitation session was conducted in the form of an interview, the business analyst provides direction to the interviewee regarding next step. Next, what do you expect him to do? Maybe you expect him to send certain papers by mail to him by tomorrow. So what are the next steps? The close is always used to thank the participant for their contribution and time. 3 questions a business analyst may consider asking at the end of each elicitation session. Number 1, do you have any additional questions? You must ask that. Maybe he has some other things to say. Is there anything we missed out on, anything that we should have talked about? Is there anyone else who might have information that would contribute to the elicitation objective? So this is good. If you ask these 3 questions, you are not missing out anything. Upon the conclusion of the elicitation session, the business analyst has a lot of information to process. As a result of analyzing this information, the business analyst may find that new questions emerge, ambiguities and contradictions surface, and clarity that was originally present turns to vagueness. You thought the things have been clarified, but once you analyze this data, you understand, well, it was not really clarified. You may need to have another session. This is not an uncommon outcome considering the large amount of information that is relayed during an elicitation session. The questions that arise during analysis become the material to help structure the objective for the follow-up session. So you may have a follow-up session for clarification of those things, and you can have even more than one follow-up session, looking at the sensitivity of the information, and also considering that you are not getting into paralysis through analysis. We don't want that. So don't overdo anything, but at the same time, if something is necessary and you need to again go back there and get that, then that is necessary. Last point here is the follow-up. In a follow-up session, after taking time to analyze and consolidate the information, business analyst shares any revised notes and takes the opportunity to obtain confirmation from the participant on the information obtained during the prior elicitation session. So this is a follow-up session where you present your deductions and get it confirmed and signed by the interviewee. It is preferable to hold the follow-up after stakeholders have read the consolidated notes. However, business analysts will often find that participants do not have time to do so. The business analyst should use collaboration techniques to lead the participants through discussion to validate the consolidated information for accuracy and completeness before moving ahead. How should it look like? 1 or 2 paragraph summarization of the information elicited provides the following benefits. Provide an opportunity to fully analyze all the information received and to eliminate extraneous information. Allow time to verify and clarify the notes taken during the session, especially acronyms, abbreviations used in an effort to capture all the information being provided. Uncovers any question that should have been asked during the meeting. Reinforces the participant that their information is valuable enough for someone to spend the time to digest and analyze and summarize it. Gives each participant a chance to respond to the summarization with additional information, if any, and provides participants with an opportunity to clarify or correct anything said previously. Note, an alternative approach business analysis can employ is to produce all notes on a whiteboard during the listening session. That is exactly what I was saying. Attendees can clarify and correct information on the spot to avoid a review process. The business analyst determines the appropriate process based on the size of the project and the complexity of the information being elicited. Again,
Sir, sorry to interrupt, but basically this follow-up is being conducted during the session. So we are taking the confirmation from the participants or the stakeholders during the session.
it can be during the session,
One thing.
the end of the session, or it can be after some time. You know, if you have to do paperwork, if you have to go back, compile your notes and send a summary of those notes to the participant, this is a follow-up. Maybe another follow-up meeting to get things signed by him, this is a follow-up. But you can avoid this follow-up if you can keep writing all the decisions or all the information on a whiteboard and then discuss with him whichever, is it valid, it is okay, and whatever. So that way you will eliminate the need for that.
So this means, as per your second definition, which you have told me, follow-up, it's a very right word. But as per the definition one which you have told me, I believe that that's a conclusion. It's not a follow-up. It's a conclusion we are writing at the end of the session, and we are sending it to the stakeholder.
Yeah, but we
That
need
please get it signed or approved.
yeah, we need a confirmation on that. Whether you want to call it conclusion, but conclusion does not need a confirmation. So we are not calling it a conclusion because we need some confirmation or signature from that person. Conclusion I can write myself. Follow up, it has to be done with the participant. Got it?
Okay. Okay, sir.
I think I should close today's session here, and we will discuss the elicitation techniques tomorrow. And you know, this is very interesting, and you might have known all these things before, but you know, the discussion is very interesting because these are soft skills. So any
All
question?
right, sir. No worries. So far so good. I'm clear with this. I don't know. I feel that the slides for this analysis is 7 total slides. So these are the slides less in numbers in comparison to the planning domain.
The planning, okay, okay. So
So
if you want, I can send you those slides again, but this covers the whole matter. I hope
okay,
you have
fine.
the right
If
slide.
you are comfortable, then it's okay.
This covers the whole matter. Then nothing is left out.
Yes, sir.
Everything is discussed.
Okay. I guess it's fine. Sir, can you please tell me at what time you are conducting the sessions in daytime?
Till 5. I just get free at 5, and after 5, I just need a little bit to relax, and then I can get back. 6 is okay with me.
So, and when your session started?
9 a.m.
When your session? Oh, okay, it's 9 a.m. Okay.
9 to 5.
And just only for my info, are you conducting any PBA session this time?
Not PBA session. I started a PGMP session today. It will go on for 1 week. Next week we are planning for a PBA session, and next to next week we are planning for a PMP session.
Okay.
So do you want to join the PBA session?
Okay. Sir, I guess now it will be difficult join that session, or I can always, if it's going to start next week, we can discuss it on Friday.
Of course, why not? Why not? Do you want to fly over here to
So,
Islamabad?
no. So I will be available online.
Online.
So are you taking it online or you are taking it physically?
I am not doing PGMP session online, but I can do PBA session online. But so far, I do not have many interested people. So it might be even cancelled.
Okay.
So if
Okay.
it realizes, then I'll conduct it. Otherwise, I'll not.
All right, fine. So far it's not been finalized. Previous session is not finalized for next week as well, right?
Exactly.
All right, sir. Fine. I'm comfortable with the sessions we are conducting so far, and
Okay.
the pace we are going with, because it's been a very low pace. I can understand it's been a hectic for you,
Mhm.
but this is how it's not been a study burden for me,
But I
and
can do,
I've been very much.
what I can do is
Yes.
if we cannot complete it this week, then next week I will give you extra time. Right?
Yes, sir. We can always, because my professional work is not being so much these days with me. So
Okay.
if it's not going to be completed this week, so next week we can always have the session in the
Yeah.
daytime,
But I'm very
or we can
hopeful.
have the session of 2-3
I'm very hopeful if we do it daily now, we will be able to complete it.
hours. Right, sir. Let's see how it goes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your company, and it was nice having discussion with you. Thank you very much today. Take care.
All right. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.